Hey everybody, it's Greg LaBeouf here with you. Hey, want to jump on, share another episode of the the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. And today I'm going to talk about the 5 most critical seconds of your life and the 4 skills that you need to control those 5 critical seconds. All right, back in 60 seconds. Stick with me. Many people understand that they can at any time become the target of a violent criminal assault. These same people know that they have a life, family, and property worth defending. Criminals understand that violence is its own language. Violence is not the sport of competition. Violence is not the art of fighting. Violence is about one thing: destruction. There are those who believe that violence, even in self-defense, is morally wrong. Then there are good people like you who know that defending yourself, family, and others, as well as your property, is not only a personal right, but a duty within a civilized society. Understand, violent assaults are won before they occur. People who learn strategy survive. People who do not will not. For those brave people who believe life is precious and worth defending, welcome to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. Okay, we're back. I said that today we're going to talk about the 5 most critical seconds of your life. What are the 5 most critical seconds of your life? And what's interesting is you guys have heard me say this in the past, that there are 3 types of crisis in this world. There's a natural crisis, mechanical crisis, and the human crisis. Okay, so natural crisis, tornadoes, earthquakes, mechanical crisis, car accident at work, and then the human crisis is interpersonal human aggression, violence, okay? All 3 types of crisis, the most critical time in that is the first 5 seconds of any crisis. Now you understand that the human crisis, interpersonal human aggression, is the number 1 universal human phobia, right? Why? Because it's personal. So today I want to talk about those 5 most critical seconds. Now, if we break this down, in any crisis, the first 5 seconds are critical. Why? Now let's go beyond. What about seconds 6 and on? There's some horrific things that can happen. Problems can get worse. There's a tornado coming. There's a car accident. It's a violent assault. From 6 seconds on, shit can get bad. It can mutate. Shit can get far worse. The majority of the damage, the trauma, the destruction, the death, the injury can all happen after 6 seconds. But the first 5 seconds are the most critical. Why? Because how you respond in those first 5 seconds determines the outcome. Now you have to understand what I'm saying. The first 5 seconds determines the outcome. Now, there could still be death, there could still be injury, there could still be, devastation and trauma. But what you do in those first 5 seconds, if you don't have a controlled, regulated response, if you don't understand how to manage those first 5 critical seconds, then everything that happens from second 6 and on is going to be worse. So I'm not saying that how you respond in those first 5 seconds, when I say it determines the outcome, I don't mean that it always is going to prevent horrible things from happening, because those horrible things can still happen. The first 5 seconds of a violent assault targeting me and my family, I could still die. My kids, my wife could still be killed. But those first 5 seconds are where I have a chance. It is where I can create my John Wick moment. Right? The first 5 seconds of a natural disaster, the first 5 seconds of a mechanical incident, you have to take control of the only thing that you can control. You can't control Mother Nature. You can't control if that tornado rips through your home. You can't control all the time. You can't control an accident. You're driving down the road and somebody falls asleep at the wheel, they're drunk at the wheel, or they're just a moment of inattention, texting phone, and they cross that yellow line and boom. We can't control the actions of others. We can't control nature. We can't control those things. But in the first 5 seconds of any critical incident, we have to take control over the only thing we can control, which is ourselves. So I said that what I'm going to share with you is the 4 tools that you need to control those first 5 seconds. Okay, so what are the 4 tools? Tool number 1 is self-talk. You see, metacognition. Metacognition is just a fancy term for self-talk or self-awareness. You see, as human beings, we're the only species on this planet that has the ability to think about what we're thinking about. If I ask you what you're thinking about right now, you can become self-aware. I'm hungry, I'm thinking about a hamburger. I'm thirsty, I'm thinking about a tall glass of water. You can become aware of what you're thinking about. And if you can think about and become aware of what you're thinking about, then you can change what you're thinking about. And so in the first 5 seconds of a critical incident, we have to take control over our thoughts. Because what happens, you got to remember, is amateurs react, professionals respond or take action. So an amateur who is caught in a critical incident is going to react. And what's going to happen is we understand that the emotional system gets hurt. You're going to feel something. Tornadoes ripping towards your house, you're going to feel fear and panic. Oh my God, my house, my life, my kids, everything, safety. You're going to have a reaction to that. If it's a violent encounter, you got 2-3 guys armed with guns, knives, machetes, whatever it is, they kick your door at 3 a.m. All of a sudden you wake up out of a dead sleep and there's these people standing, these predators standing over you. You are going to have an emotional response. That's going to impact your emotional system. And that feeling becomes a thought. Amateurs react. You say, well, of course, how else would you react? You'd be fucking afraid. You'd be terrified. You'd be bewildered. You'd be like, what's going on? You'd be disoriented because you just come out of sleep. Not when you're weaponized. When you're weaponized, you have a blueprint because you have understood that the first 5 seconds, and really when I'm talking about the first 5 seconds, if we're gonna really break it down, you have up to 5 seconds. It's the first half second. It's the first 0.5 of the first second. That is where you need to control and regulate your response. That's what training does for you. Say the first 5 seconds are the most critical seconds. But you shouldn't need 5 seconds. You should need 0.5 of a second. If your training is done right, you're going to take control almost instantaneously. Now listen, the human system, everybody gets startled. You can't take that out of us. Like that is our startle flinch response. That's part of our survival mechanism. But the difference is you can weaponize your startle flinch response. So the average person, they react. They feel, and it's fear, it's terror, it's surprise, it's whatever it is. And all of a sudden that feeling becomes a thought. And their self-talk is set to a negative. We've talked about this before. We have a duress model where you have a switch inside of you. Are you threatened by something which will kick you to the fear loop, or are you challenged by it? Meaning you're ready to rise regardless. Some sort of training system has kicked in for you. So we get hit with that startle response, but very quickly we control our self-talk because we've weaponized our self-talk using the power of metacognition, using blueprints and saying, okay, in our training, we've been conditioned and exposed to stimulus and response. So we have the stimulus, a threat crisis. And that crisis is human in nature. Well, I've been there. I've done this. And so, yes, you have that startle flinch. You wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, boom, there's people at the end of your bed. And all of a sudden, you have that same fear, that same bewilderment, but it lasts, it's that startle flinch. It activates. But very quickly, what that does is it fires up an operating system. It fires up specifically implanted, imparted, developed software. And so there's that startle flinch, and all of a sudden, it activates. What's my reference for this? What's going on? And there it is. There is the complex survival motor system that you have built and implanted and trained into. That's the weaponized mind activates. And so all of a sudden, your self-talk flips from the negative self-talk to positive self-talk. You don't have to, your brain, remember, the brain hates a fucking void. So all of a sudden, what the fuck is this? What's going on? What do they want? Why me? All this shit, we don't care. All it is like, okay, then you go straight to acceptance. Your self-talk is like, 3 o'clock in the morning, there's armed people standing in the bedroom. I don't know what the fuck. I didn't do anything to deserve it. I don't give a shit about that stuff. It's all right then. It's accept. Okay, then let's fucking punch in and go to work. And that self-talk activates. Punch in and go to work. What do you mean? I mean, punch in and go to work. You've already accepted, before you ever got to this point, you accepted that your safety, the safety of your family, is your responsibility. You got a security system in your house? Yeah, me too. But the security system is an aid. The security system is not there to protect me and my family. It is an additional tool. I'm there to protect me and my family. You can put motion sensor lights, activated lights. You can trim your shrubs. You can make sure that you've reinforced the deadbolts on your door and you've reinforced the screws and the hinges into the frame. You're doing all these things, but these things aren't there. These are not my first line of defense. These are all things that I've done to help solidify my defensive strategies. I'm the defensive strategy. My wife's the defensive strategy. This is the defensive strategy. So you weaponize your mind and your body. So it's time to punch in and go to work. It's time to activate your primary defense system, and that is you. And it's not just me, but my wife has a weaponized mind. My kids have a weaponized mind. I don't hide the evils of the world from my kids. I don't overexpose them to it, but I don't hide it from them. They understand there's people in this world that would hurt them if they're given even half a chance. They have the belief, most people in this world are really good people and they'll help you in a time of crisis. And I've taught them to trust their intuition. So they know that they don't have a fear of talking to strangers because their intuition will help them pick the right type of stranger to talk to. A fucking stranger can help save your life. Or a stranger can take your life. So, you understand, you control the self-talk. That's tool number one. There's 4 critical tools. That's tool number 1 to managing that first 5 seconds. The better trained you are, the less time you need at that 5 seconds. The less time you need, the more you are going to influence the outcome of a critical crisis situation. So it's time to punch in, go to work. Your brain accepts it, gets off the negative and goes, punch in, let's go to work. Let's do what we do, fucking defend ourselves. So self-talk's number 1. Number 2 is performance imagery. Tactical performance imagery. What does this mean? Understand how the brain works. The brain works in terms of symbols, not letters. Cat, car, refrigerator, dog, duck, gun. Everything that I just said, your brain does not formulate the letters that spell the word C-A-T, cat. When I say cat, your brain has an image, a symbol that means cat to it. So there's a symbol that flashes on the theater of your mind very quickly, whether you're aware of it or not. I say cat, some people think domestic house cat. They think a stray cat out in the alley. I say cat to other people. A safari guide that works in Africa, I say cat to him, he thinks lion. That's his reference point. That's what it means. Someone yells cat, like symbol, lion. You know what I mean? So you understand that when I'm saying that one of the tools that helps you regulate those first 5 critical seconds in any type of crisis is the performance imagery, meaning what are the symbols that you attach to things? If you're a storm chaser and you hear them call out tornado on the radio, do you think you have a different symbol? A different symbol flash up in the theater of your mind, and then that symbol has a meaning attached to it? There's literally a belief and a biochemical reaction to that. A storm chaser hears tornado, class 5 tornado, and they get excited because their perception of it, the symbol of it, what it means to them is different. What are you going to focus on, and what's the meaning you're going to attach to it? This is your imagery. What I'm saying is that one of the tools that has to be developed is performance imagery, tactical performance imagery, meaning what are the symbols that you attach to human crisis? Specifically, because that's what I'm talking about, is how to weaponize, which is the process for mastering the tool of violence. So all of a sudden, boom, you wake up 3 o'clock in the morning, there's people at the end of your bed. I have a blueprint for that. I understand how these bad guys are carrying out home invasions. You'll be able to tell it instantaneously by the way they're positioned, what they're holding, I can read what their intent is. Are these guys here to rob me? These guys here to murder me? That's going to look different. But what's the symbol that pops into my mind? Right? If I held up a picture right now, I wish I would have had this a little better, but planned out, because I would have held up a picture right now of somebody with their hand around somebody's throat, the person leaning back, and the other person got a knife in their hand. And I'd ask, who do you identify with in this picture? And most people would go, well, the guy with his hand around the guy's throat and his knife up as if he's getting ready to stab him, that's clearly the bad guy. That means that your symbol, when you see violence or think about violence, your symbol is you identify with the victim. You see yourself as the person being held by the throat with the knife where you're facing death. And you are helpless. You are at the mercy of that predator. Why? Because the only way that people's brains can function is because thou shalt not kill. You're raised, don't hit. Only animals use violence. And violence is not a part of our world. And you should never have to resort for violence. Right? And the reality is that violence isn't always the answer. But when it is the answer, it's the only goddamn answer. Whereas when I see that symbol, I see that as me. That's me. That guy broke into my house. That guy was that guy was a fraction of a second away from murdering my children in their sleep. And you're goddamn right I came through that door, have him by the throat where he's back down his knees. And now whether I'm going to finish him or whether I'm going to hold him, get him to submit and hold him till the police arrive would depend on the context of that situation. But that's me. That's who I identify with. That's the symbol in my brain. So when all of a sudden, 3 o'clock in the morning, you wake up in a crisis, the first thing is, okay then, I don't know why you're here. I don't know what you want, but I don't give a shit. You're in my home, 3 o'clock in the goddamn morning, middle of the night. Okay, then I accept that you're here. It's time to punch in and go to work. And the second thing, the second tool that fires up online is I have the image of I will fucking prevail. I have been training to create my John Wick moment. Now the John Wick moment, just so we're clear, is not the Hollywood bullshit. It's not the fancy gun work and the fancy fighting moves. The John Wick moment is all because there's a moment in the series, in that movie, in the first movie, where the fucking Russian son kills John Wick's, steals his car and kills his dog. And then he figures out, and this is the John Wick moment, he figures out he fucked with the wrong guy. This is not some guy that's just going to lie down and take it and become the victim. The symbol is I'm not the victim. Right? I have things in my life, I have people in my life that I love more than life itself. And I'm not a man that's willing to fucking die for my family. I'm a man that's willing to kill for my family when threatened. That's the symbol. I am my own first responder. I'm not waiting for Superman to come save me. I'm not under the delusion that the police are going to kick down the door and intercept this and stop this from happening. I'm my own goddamn first responder. So my performance image is that I will dominate this. I will seize back the initiative. And I will defend. So your tactical performance imagery, you understand? One last hammer on this. So many people, when I start to work with them, self-identify with the victim. That's their family. I don't care what you teach somebody, if they always see themselves as the victim. They always see themselves as the underdog. They always see themselves as the weaker. Okay? You are incapable of defending yourself. That has to be part of training. You have to have what we call an identity shift. So the first one is self-talk. The second one is tactical performance imagery. Now here's the third thing, the third tool. We're all human. I'm not worried about what you do under the best of conditions. I'm worried about what you do under the worst of conditions. Now let's imagine 3 o'clock in the morning, boom, wake up, startled, all this shit. Self-talk kicks in. Okay, then time to punch in and go to work. Performance imagery snaps into my head. I'm not the fucking victim here. This is my John Wick fucking moment. I'm going to seize that initiative. But as we go and as I'm moving and as I fight, there's 4 guys, I start taking damage. I get stabbed. I get hit. Guns are being shot. People are screaming. Chaos is happening. Walls are being broken. Tables are broken. Glass is smashing. In the chaos of all of that, I'm sustaining some damage. Or in the chaos of that, I'm in a moment where I'm trying my best to get the initiative. I'm trying my best to defend, but shit ain't going my way. I'm sustaining some damage. In that moment, what happens to your self-talk? What happens to your performance imagery? Can they start to slip? Yes, they can start to slip. We're human. But tool number 3, cognitive counter-response. Cognitive counter-response is a tool that teaches you how to stop the negative self-talk, how to stop the negative self-imagery if and when it starts. You see, we have contingencies. These 4 tools are teaching you how to manage the 5 most critical seconds of a crisis, a life and death crisis. So you can train and battle harden and bulletproof your self-talk, bulletproof your performance imagery, but we also understand that we're human. And it's what do you do when shit goes wrong, not when shit goes right. What do you do when you're at your worst, not your best? And the cognitive counter-response is a very simple mental model that you have been taught, that you have trained, and that you can activate the second you start feeling anything slip. And then the 4th tool is what we call a tactical arousal control techniques. This is a series of techniques that you are taught to control your physiology. Now the self-talk, when you've got good self-talk, that helps to regulate your body's physiological response. There's going to be changes occurring inside of your body. Hyperoxygenated blood, adrenaline, vasoconstriction, auditory exclusion, slow time motion, fast time motion, perceptual distortion, cognitive lessening because of blood flow leaving the brain. There's going to be all kinds of shit that's happening to your body. All of it there is to help enhance your survival. However, shit can go bad. So you have tactical arousal control techniques that teach you how to regulate your body's physiology. The human system, when weaponized, becomes the human weapon system, needs to be regulated. You drive your car, you have antifreeze in your car. Why? So the car doesn't overheat. The engine in and of itself cannot function without ways to regulate and control, and temperature is one of those things. Well, same with the human system. Under pressure of life and death, when you and your family's life is at stake, we need other systems to help regulate our body. So how do you cool your body? How do you oil inside of the car to keep the parts so they don't have metal and metal friction? You have lubrication inside. Like, this is the same thing, and I'm going to give you one of about 20 different tactical arousal control techniques that you should know, that should be part of your training. Okay, one of them, the most powerful one, breathing. And people almost always feel like, oh, breathing. Well, yeah, breathing. No, people are like, oh, I already know how to breathe. I've been doing it all day. That's why I haven't passed out yet. And it's like, no, breathing and using breath are two totally different things. And if you are just breathing in a combat crisis or any type of crisis in those first 5 critical seconds, if you're just breathing reactively, your system will fail. Because when people are startled, they hold their breath. That's what happens when you're startled. And then you're not actually breathing. You're holding your breath. Or you get, and you start hyperventilating because your breathing is out of control. You see, amateurs react. Your breath cannot react to the stimulus. If your breath reacts, that means your physiology, your body reacts. I don't care what your self-talk is doing. Okay, then just punch in and go to work. But your breath is terrified. Your physiology is terrified. Your self-talk is not terrified. Those two are conflicting. One is going to dominate the other. And a negative is 19 times more powerful than a positive. If I say something negative to you, one negative comment from a complete stranger takes about 18 to 19 positive things said to you just to bring you back to neutral. So when I'm teaching you the 4 tools for how to manage the 5 most critical seconds of any crisis, the tactical arousal, these have to be aligned. They all have to be working together. So if your breathing is reactive, your self-talk probably won't prevail. The physiology in the breath will start to force your self-talk to align. Holy fuck, holy fuck, holy fuck, because what am I going to do? Please don't, please don't. Your breathing will, your self-talk and your breath will align. They have to become congruous. Because that's what's happening inside of your subconscious program, which is why this stuff has to be weaponized and changed. So when you can breathe and you understand how to perform and execute combat breathing, crisis breathing, whatever you want to call it, your breath, which will regulate your body's physiology, is directly aligned and synergistic to the self-talk. Oh shit, there's the startle. Oh shit, the breath startled with it. But all of a sudden it's like, fuck it, okay then. You want to be in my house in my room at 3 o'clock in the morning? Fuck it, okay, I don't care why you're here. You're here. Okay then, let's punch in and go to work. And your breath is, okay then, punch in and go to work. Okay then, punch in and fucking go to work. When I talk, punch in and go to work, the breath aligns with that. Performance imagery. Motherfucker, in this photo, it's me that's got my hand on your throat. Not the other way around. Right now, the self-talk, the performance imagery, and the tactical arousal control technique, the physiology, are all aligned. And if any one of the 3 begins to slip because I'm taking damage, yeah, I expect it. You got knives, yeah, I expect to get hit. I expect to get damaged. That shit happens. What do you think happens? That happens. I understand the realities of violence, but that shit don't matter. Because I'm just going to keep going. How long is this going to take? As long as it fucking takes. So now the cognitive counter response activates. I got a way to interrupt any negative that tries to penetrate the self-talk, the performance imagery, or the tactical arousal control techniques. Now I just gave you breath. There's cue imagery, there's music, there's selective association, there's tactical neuromuscular relaxation. There's all kinds of things that we use to be able to regulate the human system under stress. And all of this is perfected, weaponized, and bulletproofed in your training. You see, training's not kicking and punching, folks. Training's not fighting. Training's not competing. Training is not triangle chokes and leg sweeps and wrist locks and headbutts. Training is not the physical. It is not the tools alone. It is the strategical and tactical and the tool development, but in a hierarchy of order. So once again, understand the first 5 seconds. The first 5 seconds are the most critical seconds of your fucking life when you face a crisis. And the single greatest crisis that a human being can face is interpersonal human aggression from another member of our species, to be debased and dehumanized by another human being, where they are willing to kill us, and it's different because it's fucking personal. A tornado ain't personal. An accident is exactly that, a fucking accident. But when another human being makes a conscious decision to end your life or the life of your loved ones, that shit's personal. And when they come into your inner sanctum, whether it's in your home or in your office or as you're driving in your car or as you're out watching a movie or eating supper or taking in a sporting event, in those private moments where you're just trying to live life, when somebody makes a personal decision to try to murder you and your family, that's the ultimate crisis. The first 5 seconds are the most critical, and there are 4 tools that you must know, train, weaponize, and develop that will help you manage those first 5 critical seconds. Self-talk, performance imagery, cognitive counter-response, and the tactical arousal control techniques. All right, everybody, that is your crash course on how you take control of the first 5 most critical seconds. Stay safe, stay weaponized, and we're going to chat again soon.